What if I told you that your relentless pursuit of perfection isn't actually about excellence at all? What if every sleepless night you've spent polishing that project, every moment you've hesitated before speaking your truth, every time you've dimmed your light to make others comfortable, what if all of it was simply your soul's desperate attempt to avoid the terrifying magnificence of who you truly are? You think you're a perfectionist. Society has given you this label, and you've worn it like armor. But today, we're going to strip away that comfortable lie and reveal what Carl Jung knew to be true. Your perfectionism is not your strength. It's your fear dressed up in socially acceptable clothing. If this video resonates with you, please like and subscribe, because by the end of this journey, you'll become a different person. Stay until the end and witness your own transformation. Let me speak to the exhausted soul hiding behind your achievements. You know who you are. You're the one who rewrites emails 7 times before sending them. You're the one who stays late at the office, not because the work demands it, but because leaving feels like admitting defeat. You're the one who presents a flawless image to the world, while your inner landscape resembles a battlefield of self-doubt and relentless criticism. Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But what happens when what irritates us most is our own inability to simply be? What happens when the very thing we think makes us valuable, our perfectionism, becomes the prison that keeps us from experiencing our authentic power? You see, perfectionism is not about standards. It's about safety. It's about creating a fortress so impenetrable that no one can see the trembling child within who fears they are fundamentally flawed, fundamentally unworthy, fundamentally not enough. Every perfectionist I've ever known carries the same wound, the terror of being truly seen. Not the polished version, not the carefully curated self, but the raw, unfiltered essence of who they are. And so they perfect and polish and present, believing that if they can just make themselves flawless enough, they'll finally be safe enough to exist. But here's what Nietzsche understood about power that you've forgotten. What does not kill me makes me stronger. Your perfectionism isn't making you stronger. It's slowly killing the very essence of who you came here to be. You're not building strength. You're building walls. You're not creating excellence. You're creating exile from your own soul. The pain you feel, that chronic dissatisfaction that no achievement can ever fully quiet, that's not a bug in your system. It's a feature. It's your psyche's way of telling you that you're living in contradiction to your own nature. You're a wild river trying to flow through perfectly manicured channels, and the pressure is building. Now let us illuminate the shadow that society has cast over your authentic self. From the moment you drew your first breath, you were inducted into a system that profits from your self-doubt. They taught you that love is conditional, that acceptance must be earned, that your worth is measured by your productivity, your compliance, your ability to make others comfortable with your existence. Machiavelli observed that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Society has weaponized this truth against you. They've convinced you that the appearance of perfection is more valuable than the experience of authenticity. They've taught you to worship at the altar of external validation while your inner wisdom withers from neglect. Consider how cunningly this conditioning operates. When you were a child and you expressed your natural exuberance, they said, "Indoor voice." When you showed your creative wildness, they said, "Color inside the lines." When you expressed your authentic emotions, they said, "Don't be so sensitive." Slowly, methodically, they taught you that your natural self was somehow wrong, and that love, safety, and belonging required you to become someone else. Jung called this the development of the persona, the mask we wear to navigate social expectations. But what happens when the mask becomes so convincing that we forget there's a face underneath? What happens when we become so skilled at being what others need us to be that we lose touch with what we actually are? Your perfectionism is your persona on steroids. It's your psyche's attempt to create such a flawless exterior that no one will ever question your right to exist. But here's the shadow truth that Jung understood. Every persona creates its opposite. The more perfect you try to appear, the more imperfect you feel inside. The more controlled your exterior becomes, the more chaotic your inner world grows. This is why you feel like a fraud, even when others praise your accomplishments. This is why success feels hollow, why achievements feel empty, why no amount of external validation ever fills the void. You're being applauded for a performance while your authentic self sits in the audience, unrecognized and slowly dying. The system wants you this way. It profits from your self-doubt, your people-pleasing, your relentless need to prove your worth. A person who knows their inherent value is dangerous to systems built on exploitation. A person who trusts their own judgment can't be easily manipulated. A person who embraces their flaws and shadows can't be controlled through shame. And so we arrive at the most radical act of self-love, withdrawal. Not from life, but from the endless performance that has been masquerading as life. Jung spoke of the necessity of solitude in the individuation process, a journey toward becoming who you truly are. He understood that transformation requires separation from the collective unconscious that keeps us trapped in patterns of conformity. Machiavelli advised rulers to occasionally withdraw from the public eye to maintain their power and perspective. But you, dear soul, must learn to withdraw from something far more insidious, the tyranny of others' expectations and your own need to meet them. This withdrawal is not about becoming a hermit or abandoning your responsibilities. It's about creating sacred boundaries around your energy, your time, your attention, and most importantly, your authentic self. It's about becoming consciously unavailable to the demands that drain your life force, while contributing nothing to your actual growth. Start small, but start somewhere. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop performing emotions you don't feel to make others comfortable. Stop editing your thoughts before speaking. Stop softening your opinions to avoid conflict. Stop diminishing your light to avoid casting shadows on others' insecurities. When someone asks you to be available in a way that compromises your peace, learn to say, "That doesn't work for me." When someone expects you to absorb their chaos, learn to respond with loving boundaries. When someone demands that you explain your choices, remember that your decisions don't require their understanding or approval. This withdrawal will feel terrifying at first. Your perfectionist conditioning will scream that you're being selfish, that you're disappointing people, that you're not living up to your responsibilities. But Jung reminds us that your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. The barriers you've built against love are the same barriers you've built against your own power. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you perform instead of being, every time you choose safety over authenticity, you're reinforcing the prison walls that keep your true self contained. In this withdrawal, you begin to remember something your conditioning tried to make you forget. You are not here to be convenient for others. You are not here to make everyone comfortable with your existence. You are here to be fully, authentically, unapologetically yourself. In the silence of your withdrawal, something miraculous begins to happen. The voice that has been drowned out by external noise, your own inner wisdom, begins to speak. At first, it's just a whisper, easily dismissed. But as you continue to withdraw from the chaos of others' expectations, this voice grows stronger, clearer, more undeniable. This is the voice Jung called the self, not the ego that seeks approval, but the deeper consciousness that knows your true worth. This is the voice that Nietzsche referenced when he spoke of becoming who you are. This is the power that your perfectionism has been trying to protect, but has instead been suffocating. Real power, you begin to understand, has nothing to do with control. It has nothing to do with being flawless or having all the answers. Real power is the ability to be authentically yourself, regardless of external circumstances. It's the capacity to feel your feelings without being overwhelmed by them, to know your worth without needing others to validate it, to trust your judgment even when others disagree. As you begin to embody this authentic power, something shifts in your relationship with perfectionism. You realize that your need to be flawless was never about excellence. It was about avoiding the vulnerability of being human. It was about trying to earn something: love, acceptance, belonging. It was actually your birthright all along. Machiavelli wrote about the importance of being both fox and lion cunning and courageous. Your perfectionism made you all fox, constantly strategizing how to avoid criticism, constantly calculating how to please others. But now you begin to access your lion, the fierce, protective, unapologetic force that honors your truth regardless of how others receive it. This is when the real transformation begins. You stop asking, "What will people think?" and start asking, "What does my soul need?" You stop trying to be the person who fits into everyone else's story and start writing your own. You stop measuring your worth by external metrics and start trusting the inherent value that has always been there. Your energy, which was once scattered across countless performances and people-pleasing behaviors, begins to consolidate. You become more selective about where you invest your life force. You become more discerning about whose opinions you allow to influence your choices. You become more protective of your peace and more generous with your authentic gifts. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming undivided, whole, authentically yourself. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. As we near the end of our journey together, I want to leave you with the question that has the power to transform your entire existence. It's not a question your perfectionist conditioning will like, because it can't be answered perfectly. It can only be lived, experienced, embodied. The question is this: what would you do if you knew you were already enough? Sit with that for a moment. Feel the resistance that arises. Notice how your mind immediately wants to list all the ways you're not enough, all the things you need to fix, improve, perfect, before you could possibly consider yourself worthy of love, success, belonging. But what if that's just the conditioning talking? What if your enoughness isn't something you achieve, but something you acknowledge? What if your worth isn't something you earn, but something you are? Jung understood that we don't become whole by adding things to ourselves. We become whole by removing the barriers we've placed against our own wholeness. Your perfectionism isn't protecting your worth. It's obscuring it. It's not enhancing your power. It's dampening it. When you truly understand that you are already enough, everything changes. You stop performing and start being. You stop hiding and start revealing. You stop controlling and start flowing. You stop trying to be perfect and start daring to be real. This doesn't mean you stop growing, learning, or improving. It means you do these things from a place of wholeness rather than lack, from curiosity rather than compulsion, from love rather than fear. You become a gardener of your own soul rather than a critic of your own existence. The people who are meant to be in your life will love you not despite your imperfections, but because of your authenticity. The work you're meant to do will flow through you, not because you've perfected yourself, but because you've freed yourself. The life you're meant to live will unfold not when you become flawless, but when you become fearless enough to be exactly who you are. Your perfectionism was never about being perfect. It was about being safe. But true safety doesn't come from controlling how others see you. It comes from accepting how you see yourself. It comes from the unshakable knowing that your worth is not up for debate. Your value is not conditional, and your right to exist exactly as you are is non-negotiable. So I ask you again, what would you do if you knew you were already enough? What would you create? What would you risk? Who would you become? How would you love? The journey from perfectionism to authentic power is not a destination you arrive, and it's a path you walk daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes moment by moment. Integration is the sacred art of taking these insights and weaving them into the fabric of your everyday existence. Jung reminded us that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your perfectionism is part of your shadow, the aspects of yourself you've learned to reject or deny. Integration means befriending this shadow, understanding its protective function, and gently redirecting its energy toward your authentic expression. Start with small acts of rebellion against your own conditioning. When you catch yourself rewriting an email for the 5th time, pause and ask, what am I afraid will happen if this isn't perfect? When you find yourself staying late to perfect work that's already good enough, pause and ask, what would I do with this time if I honored my humanity instead of my anxiety? Begin to practice what I call beautiful imperfection, the art of showing up authentically even when you don't feel ready, polished, or perfect. Share your work when it's good enough rather than flawless. Speak your truth even when your voice trembles. Show your face even when you don't feel beautiful. This is how you begin to dismantle the tyranny of perfectionism, one brave act at a time. Create rituals that honor your wholeness rather than your productivity. Instead of measuring your days by how much you accomplished, measure them by how authentically you showed up. Instead of asking, what did I achieve today? Ask, how did I honor my truth today? Instead of criticizing yourself for what you didn't do perfectly, celebrate yourself for what you did courageously. Remember that every time you choose authenticity over approval, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing the collective wound that tells us we must be perfect to be worthy of love. Every time you show up imperfectly and wholeheartedly, you give others permission to do the same. Your liberation becomes a light that illuminates the path for others who are still trapped in the prison of perfectionism. Machiavelli spoke of virtue in the moral sense, but the skillful navigation of one's circumstances with authentic power. Your virtue lies not in being flawless, but in being real, not in avoiding mistakes, but in learning from them, not in controlling outcomes, but in trusting the process of your own unfolding. This is your invitation to step fully into your power, not the power that comes from perfection, but the power that comes from presence. Not the power that seeks to control others, but the power that honors your own truth. Not the power that demands external validation, but the power that recognizes your inherent worth. The world doesn't need another perfect person. The world needs you flawed, real, courageously authentic you. Your imperfections are not obstacles to your power. They are the very qualities that make your power uniquely yours. So today, in this moment, make a choice. Choose courage over comfort. Choose authenticity over approval. Choose the messy beauty of being human over the sterile perfection of being fake. Choose to step into your power, not despite your fears, but alongside them. Your life is waiting. Not the perfect life, but your real life. The one where you get to be exactly who you are, love exactly as you love, and create exactly what flows through your unrepeatable soul. The time for hiding is over. The time for your authentic power has begun.